So my name is Alex Powell. I am from the Rochester, New York office of Reward Gateway. So I apologize, this is your second American accent this morning. I know for me, I way prefer the British and the UK accents that I've been experiencing. So Deborah talked a lot about being a rebel. Here's how I'm being a rebel this morning. I'm not using my notes. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to not know what to say. The risk is I will say too much. But as a counterpoint, I also drank a lot of coffee this morning, so I will in no way be able to keep going much past my 25 minutes before my body protests. So that's the good news for you. So I am going to be speaking about, again, the mission at Reward Gateway. How do we make the world a better place to work? And the focus I will be focusing on is employee engagement, of course, but I'm going to start to transition us into this track with recognition. So I'm going to start off talking a little bit about taking us back to the research, take us back to how does engagement work? Talk a little bit about the science of it. And the way that's going to help you is as you go out and you choose rebellious choices, right? As Deborah spoke to you about it. You can keep this in mind for, is this a rebellious choice that will help me get where I want to go? So we're going to talk a little bit about the science. And then I do want to transition into one of the key ways that you can support that, spoiler, it's going to be about recognition. And then lastly, I want to tell you a story of a manager that I know that used recognition to make a real difference in his work environment. Did it make people feel better when he did it? Sure it did, but it also changed his business results. And the reason I focus so much on that, and I don't know if this is true for you, but in the US, when I'm talking to my usual audience, which is not as friendly as this one, I'm usually talking to managers that have no choice but to use the recognition that we have rolled out to them. And I know at any talk that I give that about a third of the people in the room would rather not be there. And so my job is to make sure they understand the value of recognition. Some of them are compelled because it is the right thing to do, right? It makes them feel good. It's the humanity of it. And some of them do not care about that, right? I'm sure they're lovely people. But what they're looking for is, how is this going to help me hit my goals? And that's where we come from in regards to this conversation about engagement and recognition. How can I reach both of those audiences? Because whether it's your heart that wants recognition to happen or the metrics of your business, it's going to help in either case. All right, so let's jump in. I am going to talk a little bit about the science, but also, as Deborah said, I'm going to give you a tactic you can use 10 minutes by the end of each week to markedly change engagement, all right? Whether you're using it, and even better if others around you are using it, 10 minutes by Friday that will help you to change how it feels to work where you are and the results that you achieve. So first, let's start with a little bit around the workforce and how it's changed. I have been working in engagement and culture change initiatives for about 20 years. I started when I was 7. And what I have noticed in that time is in the beginning when I would talk about recognition, there were a lot more skeptics. But we have really made a transition in the workplace in that time. Now what we do is we ask people to not just do their jobs, but they need to live the values, right? They need to deliver an experience. If you're in the service industries, an experience to customers is nothing new. But now we're saying, now when you turn around from the counter and talk to your coworkers, we also still need you to deliver an experience. This is hard to do. It requires energy and enthusiasm. And we are asking people on the front lines to deliver that to us, right? Not only do we want you to do, which we all get, right? Be polite to customers, be thoughtful, be creative. That makes sense if you take that job, you know. But then turn around to the person you maybe don't think works as hard as you do and continue those same behaviors there. And as Deborah said, there's a large chunk of people in the workforce that not only aren't there for the creativity and the thoughtfulness of it, they don't even want to be at work. But what we know and what the managers I speak with know is that without their engagement, we don't get where we want to go. Right? If I am a manager of a team, I can't do all the work. I need them to not only do it, but gosh, I'd love it if the great ones stayed, and I'd love it if they did it with enthusiasm. So we're working with a complicated work environment and people that may or may not want to be there. And this is what we've done in the US. We've thrown money at the problem. Okay, so Ali talked about how the change in engagement hasn't been huge when we look at across industries. This starts in 2013. Right, and goes up until 2017, and you do not see a lot of change. But what we have been doing is we have been spending, right? In the US, $3.7 billion on engagement, up to $7.8 billion in engagement. And we're not making the differences yet we need to make. So this is the opportunity for you. I'm going to talk to you about the science that helps you differentiate yourself in the HR space to not be someone who isn't taking the best advantage of their investments. If you have people working in this space, if you have processes and systems working in this space, how do you make the best use of it? And the answer is we need to go back to what works. We need to go back to the science. There's a gap, and we really want to close that so that you can use that investment in the way you really intend it to be used. So we went back to 1948. This was one of the first studies we looked at to say, what if social scientists said people need in order to deliver that creativity, that thoughtfulness? What are they telling us? And in 1948, they did a study. Men desire a sense of self-expression to feel good about their work. I can almost imagine them being surprised by that title. They do? All men. 1948, right? So it was a different workplace. But the results they found are the same. We go, this one, 1962, higher self-esteem leads to confidence and better overall improvement. Those studies have continued up until today, but businesses weren't listening because they didn't know what to do with self-expression in the workplace. Should I wear a blue shirt instead of a white one? I'm not sure what that means. But as we've progressed, as we've gone through, we start to look for these values and these results. We're starting to understand what this might mean and how we can use it to our advantage. What is it we crave in the workplace that will allow us to, not just because my manager tells me to, but genuinely and with my own motivation, demonstrate interest, enthusiasm, creativity, show up on time, be willing to put the wardrobe on, right? Whatever it is I'm supposed to wear. Be off my cell phone, because not just because someone's going to get me in trouble, but because it's the right thing to do and I want to deliver a good experience. What are people looking for? And luckily, all of those studies agree. They agree that what we want is we want to feel respected. We want to feel that our work has purpose, right? Sometimes they used words like importance. But also we want to feel that we have relationships. And when these three things happen, I choose of my own accord as an independent employee to say, you know what? The people around me need me to do this work, and I feel good about doing it. And that's what it is. Now, it's interesting. You think back, a lot has changed since 1948. These studies are so consistent. What could possibly be at the basis of it that with everything that's changed in our culture, we're still finding these results? And the reason is science. It comes down to how our brains work, which is great news for you because you're going to be able to capitalize on this when you make those rebellious decisions into the future. If you think back to hunter-gatherer days, our bodies wanted us to be successful, right? We need to keep moving. If you find a raspberry bush, your body wants you to remember that experience and go back there again because that's good news for you. So what our brains are programmed to do is when we make progress, when we feel that we're making progress, our body releases dopamine, like, nice job. Do that again, right? Making progress almost sounds like feeling purposeful, does it not? When I have a purpose, my brain is telling me, nice job, keep going. It's not just because I happen to feel good. My brain is telling me, keep doing that. When I feel a sense of pride, right? When I feel respect for myself, my brain releases and changes the mood to release serotonin. And you get where we're going, right? Connection with others, that sense of relationship, my brain will release oxytocin. Our brains are programmed to help us be successful. We can capitalize on how our brains work to ensure that we're giving people the environment they need to be successful because it's what they want, right? Who wants to go somewhere where you don't feel connected and you don't feel a sense of pride? So when you make those rebellious decisions, think about, am I making decisions that let people feel respected, that help them understand the why of what they do, the purpose of what they do, whether you're talking about communication later in the day or and other elements of the bridge? Am I giving them the why? And lastly, am I helping them to build relationships? If you're doing those things, you're tapping into millennia of science that says you're going to be doing the right things to move things forward. Okay, so I've started with brain science, so that's a great thing to do first thing in the morning, right? Everybody's really jazzed up by the brain science. So let's say, now if we're going to do this, I did say I was going to give you a tip, right, on how to do this. How are you going to proceed through? Here are some of the things that we focus on, right? If you're going to help people get what they crave, we got to model the values, right? There's more information today about how do you make sure you're doing that. Have your values and model them. We don't talk about them enough. Connect me to my purpose. Tell me why I'm here. Let's talk about those values. We are going to talk about recognizing strategically for sure. Communicating consistently. Are you giving me the information I need? And are you asking me for feedback and then telling me about it? These are some of the general things that people do, right? These higher level categories. But I did say 10 minutes by Friday. So what is that one thing we would say? Recognition is the accelerator. I don't talk about recognition a lot just because I really love it. I talk about it because it hits all those bases. Whether because you love how it feels or because you're trying to create an environment intentionally, recognition does all of it. But sometimes we are crappy at recognition. Right? We all know. This is not news to you, right? If I ended right now, you'd be like, thanks. That's respect people and recognize them. Thanks, lady. You came all the way from New York to tell me that? Thank you. Yay! I'm glad you enjoyed it. But there's really some tips we've worked on. How do you actually, recognition unto itself doesn't do it. We need to do recognition that gives people what they crave. And there are a couple simple things that we have determined can make that more consistently happen. I'm in the industry you're in, right? In a field of HR, these things may be more natural to you, but these may be tips that you can bring forth to your workforce, to the managers and leaders you work with, to say, if you're going to do it, these are the things you need to do. Right? Show of hands. Who here thinks they're good at recognition? Okay, come on. I bet there's more, right? You're good at recognition. You're being hard on yourselves. All right, now raise your hand if you think you do it enough. Lovely. I like the enthusiasm, right? So we have some work to do, right? We also want to make sure we're strategically recognizing in a way that gives people what they crave. I use the word strategic. It sounds very official. I could also say powerfully recognize. And really importantly, I could say sustainably recognize. We all know recognition is important. Has anyone had the experience where you move forth to make sure there's more recognition in your organization and you are the only one beating that drum? Right? You start off and they go, yeah, sure, recognition makes sense, right? Okay, fine. And then you're the one going, have you recognized anyone? Well, I'm busy. I don't know. They seem to be doing their jobs, right? How do we make it sustainable? How do we make it powerful so those people that aren't motivated by the heart and soul of it actually feel like it's something they're willing to put their time into? And here is one of the tips to make a real impact, right? Because 72% of employees say they would work harder. This is what it's really all about. I want to be recognized. If you want that productivity, we need to recognize people. Here are the 3 steps. When we recognize, now some of you are thinking you're taking all the fun out of it, but stick with me for a little bit. When you recognize, here are the 3 things I would recommend you do. 1, tell the action. What did the person do? Right? 2, connect it to either a company focus area or a value. We want to know we have purpose. That unto itself is really going to help us feel, it's not just that I did something nice on Tuesday. I lived our value of compassion. Already you can kind of stand up a little straighter. I did it because it was natural to me, but man, that's what you mean by compassion? Oh, cool, I'm compassionate. And then the 3rd one is make sure you share the impact. Why does it help? So I do a lot of webinars and talks about these 3 steps. Which of these 3 do you think, if you think about the recognition you do and others do, which of these 3 do you think gets skipped the most? Is it 1? Raise your hand if you think tell the action gets skipped. 2, if you think it's connect to a value. Yeah, we're starting to make momentum. 3, tell people why it's important. Yes, I hear that reaction all the time. It feels like such a dumb question. Someone does something great, so great that you're willing to recognize them for it, and then you're supposed to say why it was great? Duh. You wouldn't recognize it if it wasn't important, but this is the piece. If we want to give people what they crave, not just check the box and recognize them, they need to know that they make a difference, because that's where you engage the power of the biology behind it. For their benefit, so they really feel it, but also for the organization's benefit, so they translate that into action. Right? So tell the action. What did they do? Connect it to a company value. And then tell us why we should care. right? They just did it because they're a nice person, but you want to tell them why it's important. Here's an example of it, because I do sometimes hear from people, you've just taken all the fun out of it. Can't I just be spontaneous? So this is as simple as it can look, right? So here we have, this is in our recognition platform, our value of be human. And so I have this story. Thanks for getting a group together at lunch to sit with a new joiner and answer their questions. So that's what the person did, tell the action, boom. Not only was this a nice thing to do, but it shows our be human value. Now, by selecting the card, I kind of gave that away, but I did want to make sure that they knew, really, I was thinking about it. That's what be human means. And then the last one, by welcoming the new person and answering their questions, you also help our training team to get them up to speed more quickly. Because who wants to retrain someone? Or worse, have them leave. So this is probably why I'm excited, right? I've just brought someone on board. I see someone being welcoming and thoughtful, and I'm thinking, that's amazing, that's what I want you to do. But I don't tell them that. I say, thanks for having lunch. And they go, well, that's fine. But no, you saved me and my team time. You made it more likely they would stay. That's where they go, oh. And when I make a big deal about this in a meeting and I talk about this and others go, oh, I can have lunch, right? I can invite some people to lunch, and it's us being human, and it's also going to help people stay, which is a benefit to me, by the way, because new people can be frustrating and lovely, but frustrating. So that's really, it doesn't need to be, it can be in any words you want it to be. It can be as spunky and passionate. It can also be as documented as you want it to be, but those are the steps, right? Thanks for getting a group together, demonstrating be human, and by welcoming the new person, you ensure that our training really sticks. Okay. So in the real world, though, so I want to talk a little bit about why this is helpful. Let me tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story about a woman named Connie who I work with in upstate New York. She's a single mom. And so that means she has a couple teenage kids. What that means is that she spends a lot of time with her children in the back seat of her car, while she is in the front seat of her car, taking them to sports, events, school, and so forth. So she has a lot of rear view mirror conversations with her kids, right? She looks up in the mirror, she tries to engage with them. They are teenagers, so it doesn't always go as well as she'd like it to. And she was telling us this story. We'd just gone through a conversation. We'd rolled out some information to her organization. And that day, her son had a big science project due. And so she looks in the rearview mirror and she says, hey, how did your presentation go? And he said, you know what? It went really well. I was kind of nervous, and my teacher said I did a great job. And she said, oh, great job. There's a pause. He said, Mom, you always say great job. And she said, I just felt like I failed. He worked really hard. I told him that, but he didn't hear it because she'd been saying the same thing, great job, great job, great job. It fades. So she's a client, and she said, okay, I want you to know how hard I saw you work on that project. I want you to know that there were other things you could have done, that you sacrificed time in order to put into that project. And clearly it showed. Because when you presented it, your teacher saw that and acknowledged it. And I'm proud of you for that. And she said from the back seat, he said, thanks, Mom. So we get so caught up, and we may check the box and say we recognize, but the other advantage of those tips, it gives people what they crave, but it makes it more likely they will hear it. I said sustainable. It is much more sustainable if we actually feel like it contains the information we need. Those people that are focused on heart and making people feel right, that will let them know you're really paying attention. If you are focused on results, the kind of story I showed before helps other people understand how they can make improvements. So if I'm more of a thinker than a feeler, I'll get that recognition. If I'm more of a thinker in your organization and someone gets recognized for taking someone to lunch, I'm not going to want to read it, and I'm probably not going to want to replicate that because that's dumb. I don't understand it. Oh, it saves us time on training? I'm in. Okay, sounds good. Make sense so far? Okay, so 10 minutes by Friday. I also have a couple more examples I want to share with you because that all seems great, right? Here you are, it's the morning, you've had some coffee, you're like, hey, thanks for the tip. But how can you actually use this to make those changes happen? Not just with a 12-year-old in the backseat of a car, but with some of the actual work challenges that we have. So, I'm going to tell you a story about an IT department that wasn't feeling respected. Some of you may have experience with that. I talk to a lot of managers of IT groups, And when do we interact with IT? Yeah, when something's broken. And how are we acting towards those professionals when we interact with them? No. Yes. Now, why is this broken? We do the eye roll. Now, nobody likes it when their technology is broken. It's awkward. It takes us time. It's embarrassing. We don't like it. Right? Your POS system goes down, and now you can't check people out. Nobody's happy. Your phone stops connecting to your email, and you know you're not returning emails to someone. So you talk to those folks, and it's natural, but that was what they were getting from people again and again. Now, this manager of this IT group knew he had a very skilled team. He was proud of his team, and he told them, he recognized the heck out of them in small group meetings. But he could tell it was starting to have an impact. The responses they were giving were starting to drift more into that same disrespectful arena. The problem solving that he knew that he hired them for was starting to get tabled because why should I bring it all when all they're going to do is yell at me? So he tried to figure out how he could use the tools that he was given to solve this problem. Now, he said to me, we don't really do recognition. It's not really our thing. I'm not interested in doing it much, and I don't think they want to be recognized. And I said, okay, but listen, brain science, so go. So he did. He went forth and he said, all right, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to start recognizing them for the things I see them do behind the scenes, the things that make me know that these are skilled professionals that I am proud to work with. He started recognizing them for the weekend system updates, right? While I was off driving my kids around or sleeping in or watching a movie, they were at work, really focused on making a difference, saving us time, making sure that maybe they'd noticed a trend in requests they were getting and they went and they fixed it. We didn't even know, right? Maybe something didn't break, but I don't know when something doesn't break. I just know when it does. So he started to really intentionally, not just in meetings, but outside of meetings, recognize them and focus on the impact they had, right? Including information like, they are saving you time. They are reducing downtime. They are making us look good to our clients, to our teams. And he focused on that for a while. And what that allowed people to do in these recognitions was start to give that team the benefit of the doubt. Yes, it is still annoying when I cannot hook up to my email, but I also know 2 weekends ago you were working late into the evening. And I know you're bringing an expertise that I don't even understand. They started to be given the benefit of the doubt. When people reached out to them, it was more respectful. Do you have time? Is it possible you could? Additionally, what started to happen was they started to be brought in advance on projects that impacted the infrastructure and technology. Instead of someone over in sales making a decision that wasn't feasible with their systems, they started to invite this group of experts into the room and say, what is going to be the impact if we change this? So that respect really started to be demonstrated because he was highlighting it. Of course, he's making them feel respected as he recognizes them, but he's really educating the rest of the organization on why they should treat his group in the way that he knew they deserved to be treated. And as that started to happen, they started to feel the difference in how they were treated. And the impact of that was increased collaboration. We want to feel connected, right? If you make a change that impacts me and you don't talk to me about it, yeah, I'm not feeling respected, and I don't have that connection, which my brain wants me to have. So increased collaboration, more creative solutions. If someone says thank you in a way that's really grateful after I've fixed something that's broken, the next time someone asks me, I'm more likely to say, well, let me look at it. Maybe it isn't a user error. Maybe it really is your system. Let me take a look. And he started to notice faster problem resolution. So this is a combination of lots of different IT groups that we've worked with. This is a unique problem, whether it's IT. HR, you may also represent this. Are you doing things behind the scenes that people don't know and understand? Do you sometimes get brought problems rather than be acknowledged for the solutions that you bring? Think about that. Not just are you recognizing the people on your team, but are you socializing that recognition to help educate others and to ensure that the team is really given the credit they're owed? Because you alone cannot give employees what they crave. It needs to be socialized. All right. So this is a quote from one of our clients. I've seen our staff become more cohesive and working more as a team. I've also seen more crossover between shifts and departments being supportive and assisting when needed. And they attributed most of that to the recognition, educating, engaging their teams. Okay, so I want to be cognizant of time. There are a couple other stories I had here, but I'm going to save those for the afternoon session. I've got a couple more. This is a cool one, though. I want to read this quote before I wrap up. I think that when people read the recognition, it tells them, I should do this. It makes a difference when I, for example, come on my shift at the right time, because look at the impact it has. To know that you can have that impact, that's what our jobs are about. Right? So it's not just how are we individually recognizing, but how are we socializing that, making it available to others so that it is a learning tool and so that it helps with communication. It's all linked, right? It's all linked. Okay, so I do have one, Ollie really started us out with a surprise, right, that you guys had. There was some music going to be played today. I also have a little bit of a secret that I want to share. If you're looking at 10 minutes by Friday to recognize, right, it's going to be a lot easier if you have it on your phone. So for those of you that are clients of Reward Gateway, coming down the pike is the Connect Plus app. If you are at EB Connect, there will be more information there. This is really, like I said, I'm kind of revealing this a little bit early. Many of you may know about it, that it's coming, but EB Connect is where you can go and get more information about this, because if you're going to ask your leadership and managers to do what you know is right and recognize more, let's make sure it's in their pocket, right? Before you flip over to Twitter, also recognize or comment on an existing recognition. All right, if you have any more questions before I do my last slide here, if you have any questions about recognition, I know we're moving quickly and you're going to move on, but keep in mind Basecamp. Abby is there at Basecamp. I will be there at Basecamp as well. If you have questions about either how you can make your recognition program more effective or the features that are available in your recognition program, please go down and visit those experts that just don't happen to be on the stage right now. So to summarize, there's 80 years of evidence on what we crave to become more motivated. We have been ignoring it, and we are realizing now that it can't be changed. Employee engagement has barely budged in 18 years. You have the opportunity, as part of our conversations today, to differentiate, right? To be the one that starts to move that needle. Most humans crave more recognition. When you make other rebellious choices, think about, is this going to help people feel respected? Is it connect them to the purpose of their job? Is it helping them build relationships? But we know recognition already does those things, so that's something to focus on. When you recognize, tell the action, connect it to a value, and share the impact to maximize that recognition. If you're going to do it, make sure it's working, especially for those folks where they maybe don't quite put their heart and soul into it. These are the steps that will allow them to see the difference. And lastly, you can solve real cultural and business problems with recognition. We've seen it. It's great, because then people feel great, and you get to feel that pride of ownership to see your organization growing in the way you want it to grow. All right? So on that note, there's our 25 minutes. Thank you so much for your time and attention in this big room. I'm going to hand it back over to Dom.